Hello, and welcome to a very special virtual edition of Word of Mouth. I'm your host, Dr. Megan P. Nolan. I started this reading series in a little venue called Blue Stockings Bookstore on the Lower East Side of Manhattan in 2006, and it has existed in one form or another throughout the years. This reading series has always remained dedicated to poetry, fiction, and creative nonfiction as a way to share in the human experience. This year, we are celebrating the creative writers from SUNY Rockland Community College. We will be presenting each student's works in a separate videos, so please look for the links as a part of the Unity and Community program. I'm going to start us off this season. So for those of you who don't know, in the writing world, I'm known as MP Nolan. And I not only publish academically, but I have many poems that have been published throughout the years in lots of journals. And I have nonfiction pieces in journals like Thread, and I'm even working on a historical mystery novel that will come out at some point in the future. But today I'm going to be reading a few throwback jams from my collection of poetry, Stratification, and a second one that's dedicated to all of my writers out there. So thank you for joining us for Word of Mouth, and let's get started. The problem of donuts. He ordered the baker's dozen, but to his chagrin, what was supposed to have been a melodious blend of donuts turned out to be just jellies and eclairs. Originally, he declared both equally delicious, but could not hide his disappointment, for he had anticipated a bear claw or an apple fritter. As he sat there on his usual park bench, faced with the problem of donuts, he pawed at the box and contemplated this gross error. The puffed chew paste of 3 erect eclairs delicately rose above the others in sophisticated air. The first, a custard, had tawny icing that glistened golden in the morning sun. He grazed his finger across the top and discovered Belgian butterscotch. But he dared not eat it despite foreign intrigue, for he would certainly want more, which he could not afford. The others were lighter, filled with whipped cream. He thought that one could easily digest 50 and still feel empty. This was unjustifiable, and yet it seemed unfair for such a confectionery delight to be cramped in the same quarters as the basic pastries. He noted that the baker took great care in plumping up those eclairs, but the jellies had been pumped full in an assembly line and then thrown into a massive vat where they were fried until they were fat. Clearly, a jelly never had a chance at being an eclair. It could have been baked instead of fried. It could have been jammed with raspberry instead of grape or even orange marmalade, ne'er a fancy vanilla pastry cream. One particular jelly had a puncture wound, a casualty of mass production. It oozed jeweled contents onto 2 adjacent comrades. For some reason, this slightly sickened him, and they were deemed unfit for consumption. He surveyed the other 7. One of the whipped eclairs was slightly dusted with the powder of his enemy, and in some sort of retaliation, elitist eclair icing had rubbed off onto the entire jelly section. These were unacceptable. He grew weary with hunger on this ill-spent morning, and so the time had come to do what had to be done. Despite their flaws, it seemed that there was more potential in jellies. He ate 3. The next poem is A Missive to the Compulsive Writer. You expend too much effort to conceal a fact which should be a tacit tenet. Society will have you believe that healthy living requires no conflict. But society lacks veracity. Family is indeed a little kingdom rotten to the core. It's torn with factions which are by nature prone to revolution. And so you will fight these little battles for an eternity, trying to call to reason the misinformed and unwise, as it seems so important at the time. Until you write, sometimes in mere captions, small snapshots of significant moments, which become the grisly abject substance that make a journal near invaluable. That paracosm is an empty space, a place free of emotional candor. Pandering for conventional wisdom is a conviction that's lost on paper. And so you skip the objectivity for something more morosely obsessive, the arranging of thoughts via language. That is the air which you breathe daily. So, if chaos be the imposed catalyst, then pray let her never wane or desist. The clever ruse through which she operates is necessary to the solipsist, as he must define his world in order to exist, placing great importance on the hidden art of inherent tinder, its self-sabotage reserved for linguists. No wonder Roget and Johnson classified, because on words one can always rely. They do not disappear, die, or intrude as individuals so often do. Thank you, and enjoy word of mouth.